What I want to talk to you about today is very short. It's a little depressing. It's about the Stratford jail fire that happened in 1977. And the topic came up from Nora, sending me an email in January this year, said, does this mean anything to you? And she had received an email from the Guelph Museum. And in turn, they had received an email from the Stratford Birth Museum that said, hey, we've got an inquiry about this. This was literally what they had received by email. And they'd had a request for information about prisoners who had died in the Stratford jail fire, and it was in the Stratford Friendship Hall. And nobody could figure it out. And so Nora said, hey, do you know anything about this? And actually, I couldn't figure it out either. I dug into my files and I worked at it for about 4 or 5 hours. And I sent it back to Nora and said, I got nothing on this. And then an hour later, I remember a fellow at the Reformatory did a newspaper article. His name was Vincent Baccini. There's the history of the fire there. There's Vincent Baccini. And he actually had really made a name for himself as a convict artist. He started in 1968 in jail in St. Thomas. There's newspaper articles about him. But this was in the Globe and Mail in '77, and that's the most important part right there in yellow. In the basement of the chapel at the Guelph Reformatory, they called it the Stratford Hall of Friendship in commemoration of the Stratford jail fire. And that's the image that Connie Shaw gave me. The important facet of the story, when I learned about this, I went back to Nora, and went back to the museum, and went back to Stratford and said, where did this come from? How did you come to this information? I've been researching this reformatory for 5 years. I didn't know about this. I'd never seen it. And they put me in touch with somebody in Stratford who made the inquiry, and I talked to her, and she put me in touch with a woman named Marianne Cole in Florida, who had created that first image. That's her kitchen counter. You can see the handles down here. She had just taken that with her phone and said, can you find out if this still exists? And she was asking because her brother died in the fire when he was 18 years old. 5 prisoners died in the fire. 4 of them hadn't reached 20 years old yet. The mural, you can see, actually is more than just its center section. It stretches past the door and ditto on the other side. And I've seen some more pictures from Connie just last week, and it actually wraps up. There are wings to it. So it's really quite remarkable. And I also learned it's not the work of just one prisoner. There were multiple prisoners involved working under the direction of Vincent Baccini. You can see there to the right where it starts to wrap around, and they've got the chairs stacked against it. That was what one of the exchanges Marianne and I had, and she gave me permission to share that when I do presentations. I got the Mercury Tribune interested in this, and Jessica Lowell did a pretty good story on it, and Marianne was very pleased that it was getting some attention, particularly when the whole purpose of the mural was to commemorate and make sure that nobody forgot about this fire and this event. Well, it has kind of gotten forgotten, and the mural itself has gotten forgotten. And Marianne wishes there were a way people would see it again. And what remains of this mural, and what other murals exist? That was the key question that the Mercury Tribune was asking. And I think that's an important question, and we're going to talk about that next. But this was the reply from Infrastructure Ontario. You know, if they don't officially say it exists, it doesn't exist. We were aware that in the lower assembly hall there was a room called the Native Sons Room, and that there were murals in there. This is one of them. These are 2 others where these images were taken, when the facility was up and operational. I'm going to try to make this work. I've never done this. So this is 1 minute. These are urban explorers that broke in. It was a break-in.
It's the basement. This is under the chapel?
This is in the lower assembly hall. So the important element here is that even though Infrastructure Ontario has acknowledged that these exist, it's in a building that's not protected. There's actually about 6 hours of these videos online.
How long ago was this?
This was 2021.
Yeah.
So you know, pretty recent. So as far as we know, those are still there. And they have been documented. These ones, I have to say, you know, they've been acknowledged, they've been documented. They have not been identified as a heritage attribute to the building. And the building itself has not been identified as having heritage value. Heritage Guelph was not given permission to access that building. You can see it's in pretty rough shape, so I'm going to accept that, yeah, there was a reason for that. But one of our arguments when the Part 5 designation was happening was that, you know, if we didn't see the buildings, how could we dismiss them? How could we say, you know, we don't want to include those buildings or the status of those buildings? This falls off the screen for some of you sitting in the back, so I'm going to read it out, and it's important. Information Ontario provided information about the murals as part of Indigenous consultation on the disposition of the property, and no further interest has been expressed to date. So Infrastructure Ontario has kind of done what bureaucracies typically do, is say, well, they didn't answer, so nobody's interested. This was in 2009. So one of my concerns is that A, the lens has changed significantly since 2009, and a non-answer isn't an answer. It's not a tacit approval to dispose of things, although there's not much left of them. The Government of Ontario does not consider the artwork to be significant or warrant inclusion in the Ontario art collection. He comes in handy. I'm going to be trolling the internet for more of those. And that's it for now.